So, Aaron, this is a big issue in the advisor community. So our audience are financial advisors. They tend to have to deal with their clients that are dealing emotionally with political news. How can they speak with their clients about how to process what they hear out of Washington?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, politics is very emotional. It's become more emotional. And I think it's fair to say that we have there's a lot of people who don't really care or are not that engaged, but then there are a bunch of people for whom this is, increasingly sort of like rooting for a sports team. And I know that sounds a little pejorative, and it kind of is, but it means that people are not always focused on the actual policy issues that are under debate and the sort of pros and cons, what they might actually mean, so much as being pretty tied up in who's winning and who's losing. And that, that's just not that helpful. So, what can advisors do? I think sort of trying to take that, that 30,000 foot view, really think about what's going to actually affect them. Let me try to give a real example. Something like the possible end of the backdoor Roth and the backdoor mega Roth that's been on the table. There's pros and cons to that from a policy perspective, but when you think about the likelihood of that actually happening, it was never that high. It wasn't something to really freak out about or stress out about until it actually happened. And, if you just sort of ignored it, you would have been just as happy because it seems to be pretty dead. I think advisors themselves need to be thinking about what's happening with the Department of Labor's privilege transaction exemption. A lot of them are going to rely on it. The non-enforcement period runs out in June. I don't see a lot of coverage of that even in the trade press, but from my perspective, it's a pretty big deal.